Hey folks, I hope you guys got the reminder that I sent out yesterday about how we're going to do school the rest of the year. So I will be sending those of you that don't have internet, so you may or may not get this. I'll try to share these videos on Remind, so you hopefully maybe can watch them on your phone. Anyway, this will be the next bit of content that we'll be covering, and it actually goes completely together. Like, we talk about growth and development, then Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is what we're going to talk about today, and then we'll move on to death and dying. The book, which I know you're not I actually have the book, but I actually found a PDF version of Chapter 8. The book does it a little bit differently. All of those things are covered in Chapter 8. They just don't necessarily flow. They do growth and development, death and dying, and then Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So anyway, but I like to do it this way so that you can have an understanding of what it really means, and defense mechanisms, and other things like that, and how humans meet needs before we get into death and dying, and look at that, because you'll have a good understanding of what a person is doing, or a family is doing when they're grieving, or going through a loss. Okay, so I know you've been looking at this screen. I should have gone to this. All right, so we are going to look at what's called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, you should have heard of this. You should have heard about it in your ninth grade health class, but I have heard over the years that maybe you haven't. So you will hear this again. This will be, if this is the first time you've heard it, you'll hear it again. Miss Coram covers it next year. So there must be some portions of it on the nursing assisting or CNA test. You'll also hear about this in college when you take college psychology. And anyway, it makes a ton of sense. It's one of the, and once you understand it, you know, it's amazing how we act. We expect people to act a certain way when really they can't. They just can't even do it. And that'll make sense in just a minute. But all right, so first of all, what is a need? A need is a lack of something that is required or desired. So I know that we try to say we have needs, or we have wants, and that is true. But there are some things that probably you may have put in the want that's really a need. Like, we really do have the need of love and companionship and all those things, and so we're sort of lacking that right now to an extent. Socialization, we'll look at this, and you may say, oh, well, that's why I've been feeling the way I'm feeling. Yes, I mean, there's a big reason why, you know, we're all feeling, if you're feeling blue or down or annoyed or frustrated, or however you're feeling, that we're lacking a need right now of being around other people, those socialization needs. Our needs do exist from birth to death. They change. Some of them change, some of them don't. But they exist all of that time. And they do influence our behavior. So our needs, and whether our needs are being met or whether they're not being met, definitely influence our behavior. They have a priority status, okay? So some needs are greater than others, and that's what Maslow did for us, so we'll get to that in just a second. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, okay? So in your notes, I've got the pictures of his actual hierarchy. I put like 3 different versions of it, so we'll look at those, and they're also in the slideshow, but I put the pictures in the notes, since most of you are probably doing the notes digitally. All right, Abraham Maslow. Who was Abraham Maslow? He looks like a nice guy. If you search him, that's the picture that you're going to find. That's like the most common picture that you'll find of Abraham Maslow. He was a psychologist. All right, sorry about that if it glitched or anything. I was trying to check something, make sure you could hear me. Okay, so Abraham Maslow, he was a psychologist, and he lived from 1908 to 1970. So definitely, you know, in, well, not in your lifespan and not in my lifespan, but earlier than a lot of the other people that we've looked at. And basically what Maslow did, if I can get it to go forward, was he studied well-adjusted people. So people that were happy, okay? So that was who he was looking at. And what he noticed was that people whose basic needs were met seemed to be happy, seemed to be happier people. So what was the correlation there between needs and happiness? And so that is how he developed what is called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. All right, so basically this is what Maslow believed, and if you think about this, I really believe his theory that everyone has the basic drive to achieve self-actualization. Well, what on earth is self-actualization? To achieve what it is you were put on planet Earth to do. He believed that everyone had the basic drive to achieve that. So being the best that you can be, becoming the best version of yourself. So I wish I was in class with you so that I could look around and call your names. Being the best Natalie, being the best Tegan, being the best Matthew, being the best Kylie, being the best, all of those things that you can be. And I just pulled names out of the hat. The realization of one's full potential. So meeting the need of, becoming who you were meant to be. So in order to achieve actualization, people have to fulfill all of their more basic needs. So you can't wake up we'll look at it in just a second, but it's really, for some people that never have some of their basic needs met, we can't ever really expect them to have a self-actualized day. I promise it'll make sense when we see the chart. All right, so here is his hierarchy of needs. So as you can see, at the bottom is physiological, all right? So that's food, water, clothing, a place to sleep. And so without those, you can't, and what Maslow taught is that you can't move up to the next level until you've accomplished this. So until I have all my physiological needs met, like that I have food, then I really can't focus on the next one, or I surely can't focus on this one or this one. So I really can't, reach self-actualization. So, I've pointed several times throughout the semester of people that, children that wake up and their only need that they have to get met that day is to find a clean water source. So those children are not ever, or people, adults, they're not ever going to be able to get up to this point because they're spending all of their time trying to meet this one physiological need. So let's bring that to the United States of America in poverty, okay? If a kid has no idea where they're going to get food for that day, they wake up hungry, they got to get to school, and maybe it's up to them to get their self to school. They got to get to school so that they can get breakfast. All right, they're so caught up in meeting this need, like and yet we expect them to remember to bring their pencil, okay, and fit in with society, and they really can't do it. I'm not trying to give them an out, but we can't expect people that are trying to just meet that one basic need to act the same way that we do. Most of you probably wake up, or a lot of you, I'm not going to say all of you, but most of you, some of you, my children for sure, they wake up 3 steps up the triangle every day, okay? They know that they know that they have food. It might not be what they want, but they know that they have it. They know they live in a safe place, okay? So that's the second one, safety, like making sure that you live in a safe area. And they know that they are loved and they belong, okay? Now, they might not like me and their dad or their brothers a good bit of the time, but they know that they belong, okay? So they wake up all the way up here, and so they're just, they're working on getting these esteem needs met, which we'll talk about in just a second. So let's take our country for right now, all right? If some of you guys, or if you know people, okay, if they're having a health crisis, like in New York, they are having a health crisis. None of those people are having a self-actualized day, okay? Because they are caught up in this physiological and safety need. All right. They're trying to make sure they have food and water and a clean place to live. And then they're working on their safety needs as far as like not going out. And, you know, when they send one person out in their house to get food, then, you know, they all kind of feel unsafe when they come back home. So, you know, they're caught up down here. All right. So in the healthcare system, this is where we meet people. We're not meeting people most of the time on their best self-actualized day, okay, where they're living their best life now. Okay, they're really caught up down here with these physiological and safety needs. All right, love and belonging, that need is met by our family or our friends or, you know, our people, whoever our people are. Should be met for a child by their family, but if it's not, you know, it may be met by their foster family or maybe by a teacher or you know, I think this is where you guys have found a lot of belonging in our class because, you know, maybe you thought differently or maybe you had kind of a sick sense of humor that you've sort of found a home for in health science, because most of us do. And it's a coping mechanism, which we'll talk about that too. So, you know, once you have those love and belonging needs met, then you move up to esteem. So esteem, this is like where you do good in something, okay? So going back to what we were talking about with growth and development, you know, how it's important for a child to achieve, okay? So that's where we meet those esteem needs. Like maybe they're the smart kid, maybe they're the football kid, maybe they're the class clown, and you know, so but people like them, they're likable and things like that. So that's, or you know, maybe they run track or they play basketball or you know, whatever it is, wherever they're excelling and doing well. And only when we have all those needs met can we actually go up to self-actualization, where we truly are becoming the best version of ourselves, okay? So none of you are here yet. Most days I'm not here, okay? I'm still working on it. I do think that I'm doing what I was put on this planet to do. I think I am using, actually in teaching, I feel like I'm using every skill set that I've been given. And so, yeah, I mean, but some days I'm a better version of myself than others. I'm sure you can all agree with that. All right, so this is another picture. This just kind of shows you those physiological needs. So if you're sleep deprived, you can see the sleep guy there. Being sleep deprived is definitely, you can't move up. You can't have a self-actualized day when you're sleep deprived. And then safety needs, making sure, you know, you have shelter, or if they're, you know, and we move up and down this triangle, you know, during a tornado or during a serious event like we're experiencing in our country right now, we're all kind of caught up. We're kind of caught up between these two and maybe this one, all right? And even this one, you know, if our family, if we really feel, you know, very fulfilled in our family life and all this, then you may be waking up here, but you're not able to meet this esteem need. Like I just, it's really horrible. I feel so terrible for our seniors, especially the valedictorians and salutatorians and historians and however many other Orions you have. But, you know, the people that have worked really hard to get there, and they're not going to be able to get that award when they thought they were going to be able to get it. I mean, hopefully they will still be able to get it, like in a, you know, and maybe if we have graduation this summer or whatever, and that people will show up, you know, that people will come to celebrate them. It's really going to be super important. So, you know, and even our awards day that we have, that we're not going to be able to have that, you know, that meets a huge need for humans. So, so anyway, and then so self-actualization, probably very few of us are having self-actualized days. You know, I mean, I'm still teaching y'all because that helps me feel like I'm still having a purpose. And you watching that, and I know not everybody's going to watch it, and that's okay. But, you know, if it helps you understand, then that helps me, you know, meet my goal as a teacher. And it's just who I am as a person, that I'm going to try to finish something. All right, so here's another another triangle or another hierarchy that shows some emojis. So basic needs: food, water, shelter, sleep, air, obviously air. Safety needs: feeling safe and secure, being in a safe environment, protected from harm. Social needs: love and compassion, feeling belongingness, welcoming. Esteem needs: strong positive self-image, some genuine self-esteem, having belief in yourself that you can make it. So you see, this, you can't, that's a great definition of esteem, because until you have this, a strong self-image, some genuine self-esteem, having belief in yourself, then you can't get up to this one, the epitome, which is the top: being creative, having fun with life, being content, being genuine, feeling like you have real meaning in your life. So, I've never been shy. But I make those TikToks and do dances with different students because, number one, I like to dance. I know I'm not the best dancer, but it doesn't matter because it's fun. And I mean, I'm content with being the dancer that I am. So in those moments, I have self-actualized in my TikTok ability. Just saying, just letting y'all know. All right, but we meet people, healthcare. So that's what our needs are. All right, that's what each human needs, okay? But we meet people in their altered physiological need, all right? And all of these people right now that are experiencing the coronavirus, especially those that are in hospitals, oh my gosh, y'all, I mean, I hope they have them like sedated, because none of their physiological needs are being met. Number one, they're struggling for air, okay? Like, they're struggling with safety. They're totally isolated. So, I mean, they are at the bottom here. So, we meet people who, and healthcare workers, we've got to be aware that illness interferes with the meeting of those physiological needs. And so, like surgery or laboratory testing, okay? Like in the way that I was talking about coronavirus, but after we get through this, just if someone's having surgery or laboratory testing, sometimes they can't eat. Okay, well, if they can't eat, then it depends on how long it's been since they've eaten. They're probably a little bit grumpy. And if they have to wait, like, now they get there at 7 for 7 a.m. labs, and there's a line of 12 people, and so they're probably not going to get their labs drawn until 9, and now they're going to have to wait till then. I mean, we are not meeting them when they are having their self-actualized day, okay? Like, we're not. Anxiety. So when a patient is experiencing anxiety, and just about all, unless they're just there for a regular old well checkup, okay, they are not, if they're there because they have a health concern, then they're experiencing anxiety. If they're there for a test result to find out if they have cancer, or even, there's a lot of times that just normal doctor visits turn into surgery and chemotherapy when they find cancer or something like that. So anxiety, when a person is experiencing anxiety, they are not living their best life now. They are not having a self-actualized day. Different medications can cause altered physiological needs. Definitely, they can, or if they're in pain or anything like that, and then the medicine that we give them maybe makes them nauseated or makes them sleepy or whatever. Loss of vision or hearing. I'm not sure if you can see that. Here we go. I'll wait till that disappears. Loss of vision or hearing is another one. I'm not sure if you guys can see that, but the last one on that page under medications is loss of vision or hearing. So, different healthcare concerns can cause that. So that would be another time that a patient, is not at their best self. Okay, see if I can get it to go. All right. I'm going to try to move that back up. There we go. Okay. All right. A decreased sense of smell and taste. So let's say the patient's had surgery, or maybe they're there because they're sick or whatever. But when you're sick, how you have a decreased sense of smell and taste, and you just don't really feel like eating anything. And so, they don't feel good. They're not eating. then that's going to spill over into their behavior eventually. This is really getting on my nerves. Okay. Deterioration of muscle and joints. So as people get older, they start to get, and they're not able to do, everything that they used to be able to do. That kind of pulls into their safety needs. So, am I going to be able to go home and take care of myself? Am I going to be able to get out of the bed? All those things. So, that plays on their safety need. So that's going to lead to a change in a person's behavior. Oh, Okay. So altered physiological needs can lead to a change in a person's behavior. And we've got to be aware in order to provide support, understanding, and make every effort to help the patient satisfy the need. So if your patient is a jerk to you, or is hateful to you, it's probably not you, all right? Now, it's not, let me just tell you, it's not you, okay? It's not you, it's not me, it's not any of those things. And, we can come out of the room and say, gosh, they were such a jerk. I don't know what I did to them. Well, it's not about you. And we'll look at that with the defense mechanisms in just a second. And I got a great video that I'm going to post that has a lot of information about that and why we sometimes behave the way that we behave. So it's I can't tell you how many times during a shift I tell somebody that I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that you feel that way. I'm so sorry that you're unhappy. What can I do? And I've been told off multiple times. I've been thrown out of rooms, but a lot of times it's because of the person. It's their physiological needs are not being met. Their safety needs are not being met. None of these things are being met. Do I like that? No, I don't like that. It hurts my feelings, and it bothers me a lot. But at the same time, I have to learn that it's really not me. Most of the time it's not me. That it really is just what they're going through, and to be compassionate to that and to try to satisfy that person's need. All right. So how do we meet needs? How do you meet your own needs? So, how do humans meet needs? All right. So we have a motivation to act when a need is felt. So, when you wake up in the morning, if you eat breakfast or you're hungry, you're motivated to go find some food, right? If you're thirsty, you're motivated to go find some water. If you got to go to the bathroom, you're motivated to get up and go to the bathroom. There's a sense of satisfaction when that need is met. It's like, okay, all right, now I can move on. Okay, so whatever the need is, whether it's physiological or safety or whatever, they have that sense of we have a sense of satisfaction when that need is met. Like if you've done, you hear people say, "That was a good hard day's work." Okay, well, yeah, so they met a need there. They met a esteem need. Families spend time together on a vacation, and they come back and they say it was just so good. Well, they met those love and belonging needs. We have a sense of frustration when our needs are not being met. So if you're missing your friends, if you're missing, if you're just bored out of your mind, that's part of because a lot of those needs are not being met. If you're letting yourself get caught up in the news and are fearful of this virus, then, that's playing on your safety need. If your parent has lost their job, and maybe if you're running out of money and you're, a little worried about food or whatever, that's playing on those needs. And we can get frustrated very easily. So if you're watching this video and you can't stand to even hear me talk about this, it's not me. It's because our sense of frustration level is just higher right now because our needs are not being met. We do have to prioritize when several needs are felt at the same time. And most people that are in the hospital, they are it's all these things, okay? First of all, they can't even think about being self-actualized, okay? Their esteem needs are not being met because especially people that are let's take, there's a guy at Trust, and where we used to live, Trustful, who I don't know him. I just saw we have a mutual friend, and he's in the hospital. I really think he's going to be okay, but he's in the hospital with COVID-19. Okay, and he's young. He's not on a ventilator or anything. I hope he won't be. But 2 young kids, so all of his whole pyramid is gone crazy right now. Okay, his physiological needs. I mean, the reason he had to go to the hospital is because he was having like trouble breathing, like he just felt like he couldn't catch his breath. He couldn't catch his breath because of the virus. So, there's the physiological need, Matt. If you can't take in air, then you can't eat or drink, okay? So we can't eat or drink, so we've got that need. Then safety need, okay, am I going to live? Am I going to live through this? So there's that need not being met. Then there's the love and belonging. He's totally separated from his wife and children, and can't be with them because of his illness. So we don't even need to go any further than that. Those 3 are enough. So, but what's the priority there? Okay. Air is the priority, obviously. I mean, he's got to get to where he can breathe, all right? And so when you are trying to meet needs of a patient, you really do have to decide, okay, which one is the most important? It's more important for I can start an IV and get their blood sugar up. But they got to breathe. So that is your first priority. Now, once the breathing is under control, then we can move to the next. And once the next needs are met, then we can move to the next. So, when your patient's in pain, that's the first need you've got to meet. Okay. So that's with every situation, you've got to look at it. What needs to happen first? Okay. And oxygen is definitely, that one's biggest on the list. All right. Okay, different needs can have different levels of intensity. So going back to that same example, obviously if a patient can't breathe, that need has a huge intensity, okay? And they are freaking out, all right? If they feel like they're not getting enough to breathe, enough air, okay, enough oxygen. But let's take that one off the table because I hope none of us experience that one. But if think about a time when you've been really, really hungry, like really, really hungry, or really, really sleepy. What did you do first? Did you just, excuse me, I'm not really sleepy, but sorry. Did you just come in and fall asleep? Or did you really feel like you had to get something to eat first? So that varies for different people. If we were in class, I would ask you guys, and it'd probably be around 50-50 of people that would be like, oh, I would have to get something to eat. Oh, I don't care about eating. I would have to go to sleep. So, all right. So how do humans satisfy their needs? So the first ones are the direct methods. So these are the ways that we directly satisfy our needs. So hard work, just getting after it ourselves. Setting realistic goals. So like if you're, for those esteem needs, if you, really had the desire to be one of the top people in your class, then you're going to work hard. You're going to have to work hard. Set realistic goals, evaluate the situation, and cooperate with others. I can't help keeping on referring to the COVID-19 pandemic because this is exactly what our leaders are doing right now. I mean, they are working very hard. They are trying to set realistic goals. Some of those goals we've met. Some of those we've had to move the goal. Okay. If we couldn't meet it, we had to move it. Originally President Trump had wanted, and however you feel about him politically, he had wanted Easter Sunday to be like the day that we all kind of get back to normal life. Okay. We're not gonna meet that. We're gonna have to move it. But they have moved that further out by evaluating the situation, cooperating with others. So these are some direct methods that humans satisfy their needs. But indirect methods, and this is what we use an awful lot. And I so wish I was with you guys so I could hear your thoughts. Because defense mechanisms are, once you see these, you're really going to recognize, oh, wow, I do that. These are what a defense mechanism is. It's an unconscious act that helps a person deal with an unpleasant or socially unacceptable situation or behavior, okay? So you're in an unpleasant situation and so you pull out the psychologist that I'm going to play the video. You pull out a tool out of your toolbox. That's how she refers to it. And that helps a person deal with an unpleasant situation or socially unacceptable behavior. Y'all have all seen my defense mechanism for the most part. When I am in an unpleasant situation, like if I'm having to get onto a student, then see, I'm doing it right now. Then I'll kind of start laughing. Now I'll say what I have to say, and then I make light of it. And I need to work on that because that does come across confusing to the student. And I am working on that. I do that in all arenas of my life, not just with you guys. Anything that's unpleasant or socially unacceptable, I do confront it, but then I will sort of turn around and laugh or make a joke right after. And in my mind, I'm trying to lighten the mood because nothing that's ever helped and happened in my classroom has ever been life-ending or anything like that. I mean, I've never had a student, act so terrible, but it was just a behavior, that needed to be corrected. And everybody uses defense mechanisms to some degree, okay? All right, so some of these common defense mechanisms, and I'm just going to hit a few and then we'll watch the video, and it'll be better. You'll understand it better. Rationalization. This is where, you just rationalize away something like, well, I didn't do my homework because my power went off. Well, I didn't do my term paper because my power went off. When in reality, you really should. Has your power been off for the 6 weeks that it was, assigned? No, it hasn't. You're right. You just waited to the last minute. You procrastinated. You waited to the last minute, and now you're rationalizing it away. All right, projection. People use this one a lot. You may see that you use this one. Projection is when you project how you feel on someone else. So one of the best things that I've ever heard a counselor or psychologist say was, that statement says more about you than it does about me. Like what we say says more about us than it says about the other person. So sometimes we project how we feel or how we would feel if we were in this person's situation. Like we'll look at someone and be like, I just bet she thinks that she's just so pretty. When really, we don't have any idea what that person thinks. What we're really saying is if I was her, I would think I was so pretty. So, you have to take a hard look at yourself through these. Displacement. Patients use this a lot. This is the one that I was talking about, where they will get upset. And they will take it out on the nurse or the tech or even their physician or physical therapist. It doesn't matter, who. They'll take it out on someone else. They're angry and they're frustrated about the condition that they're in, the condition that their body's in, and they are taking it out on someone else or their family. You'll see them take it out on their family members also. All right, compensation. This is where you compensate, and okay, so maybe I'm not good at school, so I'm going to work really hard and be great at basketball. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. None of these are, bad or good. They just are. We just need to recognize them for what they are because we can keep on using these defense mechanisms and never really get to the core of our own problem. Now, you're not responsible for getting your patient to the core of their own problems. We just need to have understanding for why they act the way they act. Daydreaming, just, taking yourself to another place and another time so that you don't have to face whatever it is that's going on. Repression. Okay, so repression is one that, and she'll talk about it in a minute. Let me see. Okay. Repression is where, I think I'm getting these right. Repression and suppression, they're very close together. But like having a repressed memory, that's just where you're like, I'm just not going to think about it. I'm just not going to think about this. I'm just going to go do something else. Whereas suppression is really where you cannot Remember, okay? Like you've probably seen TV shows about this, of where somebody had a suppressed memory that keeps coming up. Like whatever it was that they went through in their life was so traumatic that their brain, in an attempt to protect the person, has removed it. I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but our brains really are that powerful. Like the brain is so trying to protect the whole organism, your whole self, your whole personality, that it will suppress, and the person really has no memory. They have no memory of maybe seeing a murder, or maybe as a child being abused or molested, or something like that. They just their brain has taken it away. And they'll usually have other issues, especially like let's take sexual abuse. For instance, if that person they really have no memory of being sexually molested. They may find though that that they are very sexual, and they're very promiscuous as a teenager, or they're just looking for approval through sex, and that is really, but they don't have any. That doesn't mean everybody that's sexually promiscuous that they were molested. It doesn't mean that by any stretch of the imagination. But what it does mean is that if this person doesn't have a memory of that, but yet they have a lot of these other signs, maybe they're always looking for reassurance, or they'll have some other psychological issues. All right, and then denial. This is the one, gosh, we just all use this one all day long, every day, of just, and even I do it, with this COVID-19. I mean, I just really didn't think it was going to be that bad. And I still can't wrap my mind around the fact that it is, but it is. I know the truth. It's just really hard. It's just really hard to see that. A lot of times when someone is sick, they'll be in denial a lot. Withdrawal, with just removing yourself from the situation. Just like, I'm not gonna do this, not gonna think about this, not gonna do that today. I think I kind of do that a little bit between withdrawal and repression, of just, I'll worry about that tomorrow. Okay, so this is a great, I'm gonna see if it'll play on here, and we can just watch it together.
Hi everyone, welcome back for another AP Psychology Flipped lesson. Today's lesson is all about defense mechanisms. These are things that you do to help protect yourself from the world around you. So maybe it's bad news, maybe it's a situation you don't know how to deal with, maybe it's a compliment that you don't know how to receive. In any case, Sigmund Freud came up with the original idea of defense mechanisms as different tools and strategies that you use to help protect yourself in cases of uncertainty. So when you don't know what to do, you pull one of these out of the toolbox. All of these are things that you've probably done at some point. And some of them we've talked about before, so those will just be review. And other ones, it will just be learning a term to associate with an action that you're already familiar with. So the first one that we're going to look at is denial. This one is very basic, the most basic of all of the defense mechanisms. With denial, you're just basically refusing to believe that whatever you heard exists, or whatever happened at all. So protecting oneself from an unpleasant reality by refusing to perceive it. This is very common in cases of death of a loved one, where you hear that your grandmother died and you just keep on moving on like nothing ever happened. Or maybe you failed a test and you just pretend like that never happened. You don't think about it, and it didn't happen at all. There's kind of a fine line between denial and repression, which is our next defense mechanism. Repression is one that we've talked about before. And this is where you're unconsciously preventing painful or dangerous thoughts from entering awareness. With repression, your mind is making a decision for you that says, I cannot remember this. Repression oftentimes gets used as an example in cases of child abuse or things like that, where it's just too painful for you to remember. Trauma during childhood, where you are just forgetting it. It's not that you deny that it happens, although sometimes you might as well. But with this, it's painful, it's dangerous, you can't even pull it out of your awareness. It's underneath the surface of your consciousness, and it's just too painful for you to actually pull out, so you're not aware that it exists at all. Another defense mechanism that you probably have used before or seen before is displacement. If any of you work retail, I can almost guarantee that you have been the unfortunate recipient of displacement, which is where you substitute a different target for impulses when the original would be dangerous or unacceptable. So here's a scenario. You have someone that is at work, and maybe they've gotten bad news from their boss. Maybe they're overworked. Maybe it's just not the place that they want to be. They're not fulfilled in their job. And then they go visit you at your store. Maybe you work at the Apple Orchard. Maybe you work at a grocery store. Maybe you work at a retail clothing store. And you're just the humble cashier or putting away things or just working on the floor. And they come to you and they just chew you out. They have displaced their anger. They've substituted you as the target of their aggression instead of their boss or their spouse or whoever they're actually mad at. They can't actually duke it out with that person in the way they want to. So they chew out somebody else instead. This might also be the case, like with the picture on the left-hand side, where you're angry with something at school and you take it out on your little sibling. Poor kid there. That's another example of displacement, where you're substituting the target and putting it onto someone that's more vulnerable instead of the actual person that's causing you grief. Another defense mechanism is projection. This one happens all the time, but it's more subtle. So a projection screen takes something, an image, and puts it onto something else. So in the classroom, we have the projection screen that puts it onto the smartboard. With projection as a defense mechanism, you have your own personal feelings, and these could be positive feelings, they could be interpretations of events, they could also be shortcomings or unacceptable urges or impulses, and you put those thoughts and images and whatever it might be on somebody else. And you think that they actually think that. So let's look at this example of this Valentine. So let's say that you have some feelings that have developed for somebody else. And you think about them all the time. This is like major 5th grade type crush. And all of a sudden, it's Valentine's Day. And they give Valentines to everybody. Everyone has their little Valentine's box. They're putting in all the Valentines, and you get your Valentine from that person, and you like cherish it, and you say, I know they picked up those words because they truly, truly love me. This is a match made in heaven. This is going to work. Now, your feeling is that you have this major crush on them, but you're attributing their actions as them having a major crush back on you, even though it might not actually happen. This doesn't just happen in this sort of scenario. Maybe let's say that you're really disappointed in your own performance on a certain sports team, and then you start talking about other people and you say, oh man, they're just so mad that the defense didn't come through. When really that's what you're mad about. So when you take your own feelings and you say that other people have them, that is projection. Another one that's a little bit tricky to understand is something called reaction formation. This is where you, as you see here, prevents dangerous impulses from being expressed in behavior by exaggerating opposite behavior. Essentially, you almost try to deny your actual feelings by acting out in the opposite fashion. So in this little cartoon here at the bottom, it says, hey Miranda, are we still on for tonight? Miranda here says, I'm totally sorry, I forgot, I already made the plans. And our original person here is really upset. She's thinking that she's mad, but instead of saying that she's mad, she acts out in the opposite fashion, reaction formation. She says, I'm not mad, I'm fine, I'm happy. I didn't want to hang out anyway, I'm busy, whatever it might be. You act out in the opposite way than what you're actually feeling. This happens quite a bit. Going back to our example of 5th grade style crush, think about boys and girls on the playground and how childhood crushes come out. This is a perfect example of reaction formation, where if two people like each other, sometimes the way that you can tell if they like each other is if they're like punching each other. So like if that boy punched you on on the playground, that might mean that he actually likes you. You're acting out in the opposite fashion than how you actually feel because you don't know how to deal with the actual feelings. Or if you're really upset with your mom and then you say like, man, I just really love you a lot. And you really try to focus on that. Maybe you're even trying to convince yourself. You're acting out in the opposite fashion than how you actually feel. Reaction formation. The next defense mechanism here is regression. And I've seen this sometimes, and I hear about it happening even more than that. So regression is whenever you get into a situation, maybe you don't know how to deal with it, but instead of acting and dealing with it as your actual age that you are, you retreat to an earlier level of development or to maybe an easier form of yourself. So the example I always think about with this is imagine that you just got into a big fight with your parents, and right now you're 16, 17, 18. You're trying to demand respect as an adult, but yet I've heard of lots of cases, and I've seen some cases where you get in a fight with your parents, and instead of talking it through, like the young adults they know you are, people literally stomp off like a little child. I can imagine times, or I can remember times with my little sister where she would be in high school and she would run upstairs and slam her door. And that is a major form of regression. Or maybe it's when you go visit friends from childhood and all of a sudden you act like you're 10 again. These are both forms of regression. You don't know how to deal with that group of friends as 17-year-olds. So instead you go back and you act like you did when you were 8 or when you were 6. Another defense mechanism is rationalization. Rationalization is when you justify your behavior by giving reasonable and rational, but false reasons for the reasons that you're giving. Essentially, you're explaining away your behavior. Teachers see this all the time with paper due dates. It just happens. The day of the paper, everything breaks. It wasn't broken before, but all of a sudden now the printer's broken, the computer crashed, whatever it might be. Now, all those might be totally legitimate. They might be true. They might be reasonable. But that's not really why you can't have your assignment today. That's just the excuse that you're giving yourself. You're talking away the problem. The reason that you don't have it done is because you didn't prepare until the day before it was due, and then there was something that came up on top of it. But when you rationalize it, you're saying that the whole reason you didn't get it done is because the printer broke or the dog ate it or whatever your excuse might be. The next defense mechanism is sublimation. Sometimes we encounter things that really frustrate us really badly. It might be a fight with a friend, it might be being cut from a team, it might be a breakup with a significant other, or some family problems, and sometimes it's just not appropriate to deal with it head on, or at least you don't think that it is. Maybe it's not appropriate to displace that either and take it out on a little sibling or an employee on a store. If you use sublimation, you actually work off these unmet desires or unacceptable impulses, etc., in activities that are constructive. The perfect example of this is someone gets really angry and then they go running for like 5 miles. They're like, I just need to go deal with this, and they just go take off. And they work off all their angers. Instead of dealing head with whoever they're upset with or whatever the problem is, they decide to run instead. It's something different. Or maybe you write like angsty lyrics for a song that you want to sing. That would be another way of dealing with it in a different way. So you're not dealing with it head on, and you're not taking it out on somebody else, but you're channeling your energy into something maybe more productive than a fight. The last one that I want to talk about is compensation. Compensation happens all the time. This is where you feel like you have some sort of weakness. It might be real, it might be imagined, and instead you focus on something else, or maybe you even focus on that particular thing even more because you feel deficient in that particular area. So let's say that you don't feel like you're a very good student. You know that school is not where you excel. Some people might take that feeling of inferiority and channel it, compensate it into really trying to excel in sports. Some psychologists are going to say you do that so people don't notice that you're weak at school. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you're really bad at sports, so you say, I'm going to try really hard at school. On the other hand, one example here, especially with this little girl putting on lipstick, Sometimes people just don't feel that attractive, and then instead of trying to go a different route, maybe they overcompensate with wearing way too much makeup. Where you're like, you'd be really attractive just without makeup, but they feel inferior in that sort of aspect, so then they wear a lot more makeup to try to make up for that fact. So these are all different types of compensation, but you're trying to make up or counteract weaknesses that you may or may not have, but you feel like you do. Compensation. So in all, we've talked about several different defense mechanisms: denial, repression, displacement, projection, reaction formation, regression, rationalization, sublimation, and compensation. For tomorrow's quiz, it will be just based on the definitions that are given before. So use the flashcards.
Okay.
Look at the reading that's on your
calendar. Let's see if we can get. There we go. Okay. All right. So I hope that makes sense to you. I tell you what, I really want to show you is something that I'm also going to attach, if I can find it right quick, for you guys to use. All right, yeah, I'm going to attach this, and you can just write your answers on another sheet of paper. If you want to print it out or whatever, you can. But it's just for you to know. I got this from, obviously, from a psychology class. So they're going into Freud and the structures of personality and the ego defense that Freud talked about. And so, we're not going into detail with that. But anyway, this has got some examples, okay? So, not sure if you can see this. Let me see if I can make it bigger. Okay, so it's got some examples. When adult defense mechanisms stop working for us, we regress to a personality we had at childhood. So what would that be? That would be regression. So, overacting in the opposite way to a fear or reality. So that would be reaction formation that she talked about. Unconscious pushing of acceptable or threatening feelings out of awareness to a point where he or she becomes unaware of it. That would be repression. Okay, so I had repression as suppression mixed up. So that would be repression. Refusal to acknowledge that an anxiety-producing event has occurred. That's going to be denial. So you guys can look at those. Here's some other ones. These are some better. Like Nicholas lost his track race and said, I would have won the race, but the track was wet. So what would that be? Rationalization. Okay, so look through those just so you can make yourself kind of familiar with them, and that you have a little bit of an understanding about what defense mechanisms are, and because you will for sure see your patients use those. You use them, your parents use them, all people use them. So anyway, I'd love to hear from you, and I'll probably put an assignment or attach a document for you to put what would be the one that you see like in yourself. All right, so in summary, beware of your own needs and your patient's needs, because if our needs are not being met, we're going to default into a defense mechanism, and if our patient's needs are not being met, then they're going to default into a defense mechanism. More efficient quality care can be provided when needs are recognized. When you recognize your patient's need, then you're going to be a better healthcare provider. And that's as easy as, like, for instance, I had a patient not too long ago who I could just tell because of the circumstances surrounding, they were having some trouble bonding with their baby. But the other reason is because there was like a gazillion people in the room, and they just couldn't take it all in. And it was just a lot. And really and truly, that patient, they really needed somebody to stand in the gap for them and say, hey, our quiet hours are from 1 to 3. So, thank y'all for coming, but we're going to have to ask you to leave, and give that mom, just some time, that mom and that dad, some time alone and to spend with their baby and just to be quiet. Now we don't worry about that so much because they can't have any visitors, but anyway. All right, and a better understanding of our behavior and that of others equals better care of our patients. So the reason that we learn this in healthcare is because if you are better aware of your own needs, then you can take better care of your patients. If you're aware of others' needs, you can take better care of your patients. So I'm going to put all this on and with the notes and then next week I may go ahead and put the videos out for death and dying, but all of this kind of goes together. So I think that's the end. All right, guys. So I hope you had a great day. I hope you could see that video. I will post it by itself if it didn't come through very well.